Well, I ended up getting hired at the beginning of the WIA days. Spent a year with them, hated it. I could go into long stories about why I hated it, and maybe later we'll do that. But after a year of it, my friend Eddie Kalika, who worked for Warner Brothers as a promotion man, suggested to me, why don't you try and see if you can get a job with Jack Boyle? And we drove down to Jack's office, and Jack Boyle owned 4 or 5 nightclubs at the time. He owned the Cellar Door, a place called Max, the Crazy Horse, and the Bayou. He didn't have an assistant. He hired me. He had known me from my writing. He knew I worked for Warner Electric Atlantic. He knew I knew the business. So I ended up working for Jack, and while I was working for Jack, Jack decided the Cellar Door can only hold so many people, and I'm having people like Neil Young for 6 nights here. Why don't I have Neil Young for 1 night somewhere else? And Jack's first concert was with Gordon Lightfoot at Constitution Hall. Gordon Lightfoot could have sold out the Cellar Door 3 weeks in a row. Cellar Door capacity at the time was 250 people. Gordon Lightfoot was huge in the folk scene. So I went to work for Jack, and during the time I worked for Jack, Jack got the exclusive contract to do all music at the Capitol Center. I delivered that. Jack threw me the keys to his Mercedes one day. He said, run this out to Abe Poland at the Capitol Center. It was a signed deal. And my life turned into a living hell at that point, because not only was I working the Cellar Door, and Jack was managing an artist named Tom Rush, but because Jack hated management and knew I was also a manager, he put Tom in my lap. Sorry, Tom, but you were a crybaby. I had to babysit Tom in Boston at Carnegie Hall at a lot of venues while concerts were being produced, and I was supposed to be there. And when you're there doing a concert, you're there from setup until everybody is paid. And then I had to be back in the Cellar Door. Thankfully, my workday didn't start till 10 a.m. at the Cellar Door. Jack cut me a little slack back then, except Jack's partner, who I didn't know existed, Sam Lahamad, who soon moved into the Cellar Door. And Sam's idea of my day was 7 a.m. So Sam would call me at home at 7 a.m. And it was a business that grew. Jack eventually knew he had to hire more people, and he formed a separate company. Instead of it being done out of Cellar Door Productions came into existence, and he had people and became a concert promoter that if a promoter like Bill Graham was doing a tour, when the tour came to Washington to get into a venue, Bill had to co-promote it with Jack Boyle with Cellar Door Productions. So concert production companies would work with one another back in those days. It's very rare for them to work with one another today because it's a monopoly.